Thank you everybody for joining us today. It's the first time I've ever done a webinar through Zoom, but hopefully we can go through a lot of good content that can help you with some of the challenges you face in your business at the minute and some of the questions you might have about what's available from the government to help you through this. If you sat in on the web video we did last Tuesday, some of this content is has been used on that, but had been updated for any new guidance from HMRC and any changes since that date, particularly the self-employment grants. So I'll share my screen and you can see what we've got going off like that. So here we go. Right, okay, so. Right, okay. So this is a COVID-19 update webinar, and more specifically about the support that's available from the government for businesses affected by COVID-19. And we're joined by special guest Tina Attenborough, who is an employment law specialist who will be answering questions about furlough, what you need to do, how you do it, and anything else employment related. So summary of the key government measures so far and how you access these is what we're going to start with. Then we're going to have a Q&A. So the questions you're putting up, Tina and I will answer. Hopefully most of them are for Tina.
I can only answer the employment ones.
Yeah. So Tina will answer those and provide guidance where she can on that. I'm going to run through how to prepare a simple cash flow forecast, which we did on the previous one, but if you weren't there, we'll show you that. Other tips on how to survive the next few months, and then really how you can take this current challenge that we're going through and turn it into an opportunity for you and your business. So the various measures announced by the government include support for self-employed people through government grants. That was announced last week, I think it was Friday, and that's an 80% grant, which we'll talk about first. The coronavirus job retention scheme, which is what the furlough all relates to, and what Tina will be able to tell you about that. Deferred VAT and income tax payments, statutory sick pay support, business rate support, the grants, the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, with further details have been announced on that, and time to pay service. So the government support for self-employed people. So this was announced on Friday, and the scheme allows you to claim a taxable grant. So this will be included on your tax return when you do your tax return for 2020 to 2021, because the grants won't come in until after 5th of April. It's a maximum of £2,500 per month for the next 3 months. But obviously, if we're still in lockdown and things haven't changed, that may be extended that period. So the rules are quite strict on this, and a lot of people probably won't qualify, even though they thought they might. So you can apply if you're a self-employed individual, so as a sole trader, or a member of a partnership. Only those two people can apply. So directors of limited companies can't apply because they're not self-employed. They are employees of a company. So this doesn't apply for directors of limited companies. And all these conditions must apply for you to qualify. So you must have submitted your 2018-19 self-assessment tax return. You must have traded in the current tax year. You've got to be trading when you apply, or you would be if it wasn't for the COVID-19 disruption. You intend to continue to trade in 2020 to 2021, and you've lost trading or income or partnership profits due to COVID-19. So those criteria must all apply for you to be able to claim. Now, if you are eligible, you also must meet this other criteria. So your self-employed trading profits must be less than £50,000, and more than half of your income must come from self-employment. And so the way that they've put this, and a lot of this is just directly from gov.uk, where the guidance has been placed. You have, so the following, at least one of these conditions must be true. So you must have had trading profits or partnership trading profits in 18-19 of less than £50,000, and these profits constitute more than half of your total taxable income. So the trading profits element needs to be 50,000, and I've made an error there. So it says, note this doesn't include rental income / salary. Your total taxable income will include rental income and salary, but the partnership the profits from trading don't include rental income and salary, if that makes sense. So you're going to have average trading profits in 16-17 to 18-19 of less than £50,000, and those profits must constitute more than half of your average taxable income in the same period. And if you started between 16 to 19, HMRC will only use those years for which you filed assessment tax return. So if any return was for 18, 19, they'll just base it on that year. So this is how much you'll get. You'll get a taxable grant, which will be 80% of the average profits for the tax years 16 through to 19, where they'll average out the profit over those years, divided by 3. And it's a maximum of £2,000 to £2,500 per month for 3 months. And that grant's going to go directly to your bank account in one instalment, and it will be taxable, so you report that on your tax return. So if your profits are over £50,000, you won't qualify. If less than half of your income comes from self-employment, you won't qualify. So they're 2 key criteria. And also, if you were self-employed but then became employed, or set up a limited company or something after 18, 19, you also won't qualify. So the rules are very strict, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that just miss out through not ticking all those boxes. So HMRC are going to contact you if you're eligible for the scheme, and they're going to invite you to apply online. So some emails have already been sent out. We've had some clients who've told us that they've had an email about this. So if you just check your inbox and junk mail, just to make sure that you've not missed the email, make sure it is an official email from HMRC, because there are a lot of scammers going to take an opportunity to try and help you with this, say put your bank details in and all that. Don't do it. So you don't need to contact HMRC, because they're going to sort it all out automatically, and they'll contact you if they think you qualify, because they'll be able to work out if you do or don't. And if you get any text messages, calls or emails regarding this, don't respond, as the claims are going to be processed through gov.uk. Okay, so it's going to be done officially through that channel, and if anyone rings you or contacts you, they're just trying to scam you, so don't fall victim to that, please. If you're not sure about it and you're a client of ours, forward any emails or correspondence you get, and we'll tell you if we believe it's legitimate or not. So that's the help for self-employed people. For employers and directors of limited companies and people who are looking for support in other ways, there's the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, which we touched on at the web meeting. So more details have been released about that. So we now have more guidance as to what you can claim for and what it covers. So the plan is to keep it open for 3 months, starting from the 1st of March. And that will be extended if necessary, as with the self-employment scheme. So HMRC are going to reimburse you 80% of the wages of furloughed workers, up to a cap of £2,500 a month, plus, because we thought the £2,500 included employers' NI and pension costs, but they've now clarified it doesn't, and that's on top. But it's the minimum auto-enrollment pension cost. So if you pay in 5, 6, 7% on behalf of your employees, you can only claim the 3%, which is the minimum auto-enrollment pension cost. So yeah, £2,500 a month plus that for at least 3 months from March 2020. Any UK organisation with employees can apply, even public sector bodies, although they don't feel like that's going to happen because they're already being engaged and paid by the government. But a key criteria is you must have had a PAYE scheme in place at the 28th of February 2020. And that's to avoid people abusing the scheme by setting up PAYE schemes and trying to put themselves on a payroll to claim money that they would not be entitled to otherwise. Tina, do you want to just explain what furloughed means, maybe, because that might help people understand if it's applicable to them?
Okay, so I mean, basically it means that any employee that isn't able to work, you're not able to offer them any work. So if you've given them short time, or then they won't be eligible. But if they have absolutely nothing to do, then they will be furloughed. You can furlough them, and they're entitled to 80% of their pay, as David's just explained. One of the issues that we have, one of the issues I've been dealing with a great deal over the last week are for those, and I've just answered a couple of questions. One was about taking other leave whilst taking furlough leave, so sick pay. If they're on sick or holiday leave, they're on one or the other. They can't be on both. And for those that have employees that started on the 29th of February, 1st of March, or any time after that, they are not entitled to be furloughed, even if you have nothing for them to do. So unfortunately, it'll be a case of either not taking them on, or deciding to make them redundant, even though they've probably only just started. In the event that they could get some of the work. There are lots of drivers being needed at the moment. Lots of other areas that some volunteering work if people can afford to do that and not be paid. But I've had one client who were a garage. They said because he wasn't due to start work until the 6th of April, he could start working for them and they will pay him for what he does on a part-time basis, but they don't need him full-time. And he's declined the offer. He said, I can't manage on that. I'm going to have to find another job. And he may or may not be able to find one, but that was the best that they could do for him. So for the question I was asked earlier on, what can I do in terms of staff that joined the business after the 28th? Sadly, nothing. That's it. Is that okay for furlough leave?
That's good for now, yeah. There'll be more questions coming up. There's a lot of questions in the Q&A section.
Yeah, I did a couple of employment ones. There was an annual leave question. As I say, you can only have one type of leave at any time. So if you have booked holiday, they can either take it and receive 100% of their pay out of their annual leave, or if they want to cancel their leave and be furloughed because you have nothing for them to do and receive 80% or topped up to 100% if that's what you're able to do, that's fine. Furlough leave has to be taken in a minimum of 3-week blocks. So, that's, think about that, it's 3 week, not 3-week blocks, more than 3 weeks minimum. So it can be for 4 or 5 or 6, but you can, if you do it 3 weeks at a time, then if suddenly they're allowed to go back to work, they would come off the scheme anyway as soon as it.
We had this question earlier, so because the 3 week thing we were aware of. So is it possible when you're completing your furlough agreements with your employees that you can say it's sort of open-ended, so we're going to place you on furlough until further notice?
Yeah, so you can have, I've just done a settlement agreement and it's based on, it's also in the furlough agreement that I've put together as well, but basically it's on the earlier of the scheme coming to an end by the government, a particular date in case you might want them back. Some people are thinking about rotating the employees because they don't need, rather than have everybody working on short time, they might have some of them working 3 weeks at a time. But then to do that, you've probably got to have people that like job share type schemes. You perhaps need 2 people doing one job, alternate 3 weeks. So it'll depend on the type of business that you're running.
Yeah, we had this with a client until they told us, because we were told, and I think Daniel Barnett said it on his webinar, that if you put somebody on furlough, if you take them off furlough, you can't put them back on. But it's now been clarified that you can do that, can't you? That's
right. Yeah, you can. But you can just take them off for a week. It doesn't have to be 3 weeks off. It can be. It's only off. What we don't yet have is clarification on what is a week, and is that Monday to Friday, is it Tuesday to Monday, or Wednesday to Tuesday the following week? What is it? So sorry, just turn the phone off. So we don't know that yet. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that holiday, they've brought out a new rule about holiday being carried over for longer. So if you're unable to take your holiday because of COVID-19, it can be taken, I think, over the next 18 months after.
Right, okay, because we only found out recently, I didn't realise that you can only carry over anything in excess of the statutory minimum of 28 days, can't you?
That's right, yeah.
If you get 28 days holiday a year, including bank holidays, you can't carry any of that over because that will then breach the working time regulations.
That's right, yeah. But it came out, I think, yesterday. I got, let me just have a look. So Regulation 3 of the 2020 regulations amends Regulation 13 of the Working Time regulations, which provides for a minimum of 4 weeks of annual leave. It's now provided that the 4 weeks of leave may only be taken in the leave year in respect of, sorry, I'm reading the wrong bit. So untaken leave can be carried over into the next 2 leave years is the new rule. It's called the Working Time Coronavirus Amendment Regulations have been made and brought into force with immediate effect. They amend that regulation I read earlier to relax the restriction on carrying over untaken annual leave into the next leave year. So,
Great. Okay, well, I'll move on to the next slide. So, right, okay. So, the type of employees you can claim for furloughed employees, well, as we just said, they've got to have been on your payroll at 28th of February. If they weren't, then unfortunately you can't furlough them and you can't claim the grant. So it does apply to any type of contract. So full-time, part-time, employees on agency contracts, and on employees on flexible or 0-hour contracts. And also, if you've made somebody redundant since the 28th of February, if you rehire them, then you can furlough them. And the government's quite keen to support that because they don't want everybody being made redundant and out of work, because that's going to cause problems for them, individuals, and everybody else. So if you made somebody redundant after 28th of February, you can rehire them and put them on the payroll and furlough them, as long as they were with you on 28th of February.
That's right. One of the things they haven't clarified yet is whether it applies to somebody who resigned, and whether or not you can take them back on. So, and I've had that question asked a few times this week.
Yeah, I think somebody else has asked me that as well. It's a difficult one, but it doesn't fit in with the guidance they've given you so far. So I'm saying to people, probably can't do anything, but we don't know until they've clarified that. So when you're on furlough, and this is quite an important point because HMRC will be checking up on this, the employee cannot undertake any work for and on behalf of the organisation. So that's providing any services or generating revenue. And the wages are taxable as normal. So for the employee's perspective, they get taxed, pay national insurance, and pay their auto pension contributions and everything as normal, based on the salary that they get. So that doesn't change from their perspective because they're still being paid. It's just the government are subsidising that with the grant. So they can't do any revenue generating activities, but they can undertake training or do volunteer work. So the training that they undertake, that obviously they need to do that themselves and they can do that at home, but they can't actually work for the business. So it's a great opportunity for them to do some training. There is another thing to be aware of, is that if so national minimum wage regulations don't apply at the moment on this. So if somebody gets paid £8 something an hour and you're only paying them 80% of that, that would take them below the national minimum wage. But that doesn't apply in this situation because they're not working. Tina will answer me. But if they are doing training and things during that time, they must at least earn the national minimum wage for that period. So that's something to be aware of if your employees are on minimum wage and they're going to be doing something. For that time, they're going to get paid national minimum wage. So it might be better just to say to them, don't do anything, because the calculations for that will be even more taxing than everything else we're going to do. So the biggest question I have been asked this week, apart from how did you get so good at Zoom videos, was can directors furlough themselves? Now, there's been loads of debate about this within a lot of accountancy mastermind groups that I'm part of, and within the office and everywhere really. And the answer is yes, directors can put themselves on furlough, but if they do, they can't do any work, just the same as their employees can't do any work. So that means they can't post on social media, they can't make sales calls, they can't do anything that would be constituted as work of an employee. Now, they are allowed to perform their statutory duties, such as making sure their accounts are filed and probably maintaining their books and records, but it's a bit vague what they can do for the statutory duties. But anything that's a statutory duty of a director they can do, but nothing that is the duty of an employee. Now, the way I see it with directors is, the majority of directors will be on a salary of something like £720, £800 a month, which is a tax efficient salary to take and then topped up with dividends. So if you do claim the 80%, you can't work for 1, 2 or 3 months. You've got to wait for ages for the money to come in, at least the end of April, possibly even May. And the amount you're going to get is about £500 or £600 a month. So if you can't possibly do any work and the money is going to make a big difference to whether or not you can pay your bills, that's the only time I would claim. My advice, and we're going to cover some tips off at the end, is just to carry on working and doing the best you can to get the business ready for when things change, so that you can hit the ground running. But obviously everyone's circumstances are different. If you can't afford to pay yourself, then you can still claim universal credit. Now, I've not included links for that on this, but if you go to the .gov.uk website, there's loads of links on how to claim universal credit. You can work out what you're entitled to, and the claims are being processed really quickly. I mean, it'll still take 4 or 5 weeks for it to come through, but that's about how long it would take for the grant to arrive anyway. So you can claim that, and that might help get you through if you've got no income coming in. But by claiming universal credit, you can still work because you're not claiming furlough. So that's my guidance on that. And to make a claim, the portal is not yet open, but the details of what you're going to need is this. If you're one of our clients who we do payroll for, then Adam will be hopefully dealing with all this. Because it's all been announced at short notice, the payroll software providers and HMRC and everybody are not really even geared up for this yet, but this is the detail you're going to need. And I will be sending these slides out anyway, so everybody can have a look at them later. And like it says here, HMRC will retain the right to retrospectively audit all aspects of your claim. And I think they're going to be doing a lot of that where they suspect either fraud or other error, because this is a lot of money for them to be paying out, and they don't want to pay it to anybody who's not entitled to it. Have you got anything to add to that, Tina?
I agree. I'm just looking at a couple of interesting questions on the Q&A, and I'd like to know what you think about this one. Can a worker do a small amount of work if they volunteer to do so while on furlough? My understanding of that is if you can do volunteer work that is proper volunteer work for the state, you know, and as is required, but not volunteering to the business that they work for. Would you agree?
No, I agree, because you're providing services to your organisation if you're working there, whether you're doing it as a volunteer, because you wouldn't be voluntarily anyway, because you'd be almost re-employed. So it's basically if you're doing third-party volunteering, like volunteering for the NHS or for a charity or whatever, but not for your own business.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be good if we could get all of our employees to be volunteers in our business and the government paid them?
Yeah, that's not going to work. Great idea, but no, it's not going to work. And another one, are holidays accrued by the employees on furlough? Yes, they do. They will accrue. There was another one. Is there any help for company directors who take most of their remuneration through dividends who cannot work? That question you've just answered, haven't you? You'll only get, did you answer that one? Where you'll only get 80% of what you take in salary, not what you take in dividends.
Dividends aren't covered by it at all.
Yeah. And they had another one. We had an employee self-isolate as a precaution on the 16th of March. It was initially thought we would pay him SSP, but can I pay him via the furlough scheme and backdate it? Interesting question. That's from Kieran Dunn. We had an employee self-isolate, so as a precaution, but does that mean if they didn't then have any symptoms, they were just self-isolating because they wanted to? If they don't have symptoms, they're not entitled to SSP. And then if ultimately you need to furlough him, yes, he can go on the furlough scheme. And backdate it, I suppose. Would you agree with that, David? If he didn't have any symptoms, he's not entitled to SSP, but if he's been off and he needs to be furloughed and not done any work, then it can be backdated up to the 16th of March.
Yeah, I read some guidance to say if you're self-isolated on the back of public health guidance, so the 1.5 million people who are over 70 or are in the at-risk category, if you've been told to self-isolate because of that, then you can be put on furlough. Because I looked into that recently for something, so that's the way I understand it.
They're not ill themselves, so they're not entitled to SSP.
No, that's not entitled to SSP.
Yeah, but you can furlough them. Yeah.
You can furlough them because they're not able to work as a result of the coronavirus. So that's it. And otherwise, they will be at work.
Are you talking about the people who are shielded, who are told to be off work for 12 weeks by the NHS, by the doctor or whatever?
That's it. Yeah.
Or not necessarily, or the people who are self-isolating because they just don't want to come into work. You can discipline those, but there's the sort of rule of thumb is perhaps the worst that you should do is give them a final written warning and ask them to come back to work.
Right. Okay, well, but if the government's written to you or sent you an email or something to say stay at home, then you can be furloughed.
Can be, yeah, that's right.
So
are we all right to do another question, or you want to carry on?
Yeah, go for it. Go, because
okay, so Lauren Pope, who I know, can I ask my team to agree not to accrue holiday whilst they're on furlough, as part of the government furlough scheme? My understanding is that holidays do accrue while they're on furlough leave, so you would have to pay them ultimately upon termination. They wouldn't be entitled to take any holiday, and they can take the holiday entitlement instead of being furloughed. Their holiday will accrue during that furlough leave. You could only pay them for any accrued holiday if they terminated, if their employment ended. So yeah, you can't ask them not to accrue holiday.
Now, what else we've got? We've got a few people asking about self-employment stuff. So I've got a couple, Peter Giblin and Matthew Glazier. Both of you are directors of your own limited companies. So the self-employment initiative doesn't apply to you. It's only if you are a sole trader. So that's an unincorporated, like sole trader trading in your own name without a company, or a partner in a partnership. It doesn't apply if you are a limited company owner, director / shareholder. So the only thing that you're available to you is some of the other initiatives we're going to talk about later. Or you could furlough yourself, but only if there's absolutely no work you could be doing. Do that. So that's all you can claim for, really. God, we've got loads of 32 questions.
I'm trying to reply as well at the same time, so sorry if I miss anything.
So there's loads of people asking questions about the different things they can claim. I will try and answer them all during the Q&A. I'll read them. I can answer live, I think, so I'll try and do that when it comes to that time, because we've got a Q&A session coming up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so the Q&A, I'll put the Q&A for that later, but there's that many coming through. It's nice to answer. So if you're a VAT registered business, your VAT liability is due between the 20th of March and the 30th of June. So effectively, it's going to be your VAT returns for February, March, or April. That payment is not due until, at the latest, 31st of March 2021. Now, HMRC may try and request a direct debit for that, because it's hard for them to get their system set up to not request it. So cancel your direct debit. So whatever that liability is that's due on the 7th of April, 7th of May, 7th of June, cancel the direct debit, and then you've got until 31st of March 2021 to pay that. But you need to submit your VAT return anyway, so the HMRC know what that amount is, and that's something you need to be putting in your cash flow for when it is going to be paid, so that you've got the funds available for it. And if you do get a VAT refund at any point, then that will be processed as normal, and the government will give you back the money as they normally do. On income tax, so if you submit a self-assessment tax return, the payment on account due on 31st July has been deferred until the 31st January 2021. Now, there's nothing at all for you to do that. It's automatic. So you don't have to pay that, but you do have to pay it in January 2021, as well as your balancing payment and payment on account that fall due on that date. So you could have quite a significant payment to make in January 2021, but at least you're getting the benefit of 6 months of interest-free money from HMRC. And HMRC have confirmed there were no penalties or interest charged for that late payment from July till January. So if you are paying any employees statutory sick pay because they are ill and staying at home due to the coronavirus, then you can pay them statutory sick pay from the first day at £94.25 a week, and you can pay 2 weeks and claim that back. Any longer than that, you can't claim it back. Previously, you couldn't claim SSP. It's been a long time since you were able to claim it. So that's an incentive for those people who have got people who are genuinely off sick. When all this was brought out, they've not introduced the furlough regulations. So a lot of people are using furlough rather than SSP, where it could be treated as one or the other, because it's better for the employee and employer for that. So you've got to keep a record of your staff absences, which we will do for you if we process your payroll. But you don't need to provide a doctor's note, because obviously the GPs can't cope with that number of requests. So the mechanism for reclaiming that SSP at the minute isn't in place, because it's a new thing that the government have just introduced. But over the next month or two, they're going to set that up, and that'll be reclaimed part of your payroll process. And again, just talking about self-employed versus employed. If you're a sole trader or partner in partnership, you can't claim SSP because you're not an employee. You would have to claim universal credit during that time. But to be honest with you, the 80% grant or 80% job retention grant is probably going to be more likely in use for people.
I'll just make one comment there, David.
Yeah.
That last slide.
Right.
You know, the 2 weeks pay. So on the government website, it's saying, well, it's a bit not confusing, but the NHS website says you can self-cert for the first 7 days, and you can get the self-isolation certificate from 111 for the second week. For the purposes of HMRC and getting the money back, is there a requirement, or is that sort of more for the employer rather than HMRC?
It's more for the employer, just to evidence that that person was off sick.
Yeah.
I can't see that if someone's off for 2 weeks and you pay them sick pay for 2 weeks, that HMRC are going to check, because they haven't got the resources to do that, and it doesn't really make a big difference to them in the scheme of things. As long as you know as an employer that they were off for genuine reasons and that's it, then obviously you're okay. But if they can get you a fit note, great. If you call 111, struggle to get through.
No, it's the website. On the website there is you just log into that and you put your symptoms in, and it tells you whether or not they recommend continued isolation. So
right, okay. So that's SSP. Business rates. So for anybody who's got business premises, if you're in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, you get a business rates holiday for the next tax year. So starting from the 6th of April. You will have probably been sent a rates demand already, but they will send you a revised one that's saying no rates are due. Now they will determine through their own records. If you feel you're eligible for that and they haven't reissued your rates demand, then you'll have to contact your local authority. But it's a bit of an unfair system. I've got a client who's a wholesaler who sells almost exclusively to the hospitality sector, and they don't qualify, which is frustrating for them, because all their customers are in hospitality and leisure and they're not. So they are quite strict on who doesn't qualify, but you'll find out if you do when you get your revised rates demand through. So in addition to that, if you're in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, there's grants that are being given, again through the local authority. So it's up to £25,000 per property. And if your rateable value is under £15,000, they'll give you a grant of £10,000. And if your rateable value is between £15,000 and £51,000, you'll get a grant of £25,000. And your local authority will assess that at the same time as assessing the other stuff that they're doing, obviously, for the rates. Eligibility, you've got to be based in England, got to be in the retail, hospitality and or leisure sector. So types of businesses, shops, restaurants, cafes, drinking establishments, i.e. pubs, cinemas and live music venues, venues for assembly and leisure, and hotels, guest and boarding premises, and self-catering accommodation. So if you fall into any of those categories, you will be eligible. So shops is going to cover a wide range of business types. So if you're a retail shop of any description, you should qualify, and you'll find out soon if you do. Okay, well, yeah, it just says there. We know that some local authorities have already been contacting people about the grants that are available for this and for the other grant we're going to talk about in a minute. When I send the slides out, there's a link to your local authority, so you can look on there, and that will give you some indication about what they're currently doing with this. Some have been issuing grants for a while, some have been taking a lot longer to get that organised. But they will contact you directly if there is something for you. So a similar thing for nursery businesses. So that's not nurseries as in like daycare nurseries, not growing plants. So you're eligible for the rates holiday if you're based in England and you are a provider of Ofsted early years education on the register, and it's wholly or mainly used for the provision of early years foundation stage education. So again, you won't have to do anything yourself. Your local authority will contact you and give you a discount on the rates. You can, there's a calculator there if you want to work out what the discount's going to be, and the calculate your own rates to find out if you're eligible. So this is going to be applicable to a lot of businesses, this next one. This is support for businesses that pay little or no business rates. Now, I need to point out that you must occupy a business property. So it can't be, you can't work from home and claim this. It's got to be a separate property that's assessed for rates, and the council will write to that business with a rates demand. It may end up being zero because of small business rates relief, but if you work from home in your living room, you can't claim it because you're not being assessed for business rates. So the small business grant scheme is for local authorities to support small businesses that already pay little to no business rates because of small business rate relief, rural rate relief, and or tapered relief. So this is a one-off grant of £10,000 to eligible businesses to help meet their ongoing business costs. So you have to be based in England, you have to be a small business and receive small business rate relief, and you have to occupy a property, which I've put there, which is separate from your home and assessed separately for rates from your home. So your local authority will be writing to you, and some have already been starting to do that process. So I know one of my clients earlier said that they've been contacted and had to fill in a form online to, proceed with the application. So they'll hopefully start contacting you directly about that. If you don't receive anything, just check to see if your landlord has received it, because if they get it, hopefully it should pass it on to you. But that's that. So the next thing, and this was one of the first announcements the government made, was the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. So this is effectively an interest and fee-free for 12 months loan accessed through your bank, primarily through your day-to-day bank, but there are 40 different providers who are on the list of approved providers. It's a loan of up to £5 million, and the period for that is 6 years. Or if it's an overdraft, it's so loans and asset finance are 6 years, and overdrafts are 3 years. So the government's going to cover the cost of the interest and any arrangement fees for the first 12 months. And the government's going to guarantee 80% of that, so that the lenders can get that through and put it through. The British Business Bank are delivering that. We've got some good contacts there. So if you are interested, we can put you in contact with somebody there, or we can obviously help you to speak to your own bank. So to be eligible, you've got to be a UK business.
There, David.
Sorry?
I might have a few clients for you there, because one of them said he's tried, his bank says, well, your business has had a downturn because of COVID, and so he's not eligible. It
is a difficult scheme. We've had two clients, and they were clients of Terry's, and they applied last Monday, I think it was, and both got approved.
Really?
But then I've seen within other groups that I'm in that people have been sent a list of questions that are so long and arduous.
Yeah.
You just feel like you can't do it. So I think all the lenders are different.
Can you change banks at this stage? Because
well, you can apply to a different lender.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell him that.
You generally use your own bank because they've got information to enable them to process the claim quicker. But I'm sure you can apply to any of the 40 lenders on there. But if they're a lender who's got lots of clients already applying, they might just say they haven't got time to deal with new inquiries. But some of those are alternative funders. So there are not all mainstream banks. There are other alternative lenders as well that are on there. Okay. To be eligible, you've got to be a UK-based business with turnover no more than 45 million a year. There is a scheme available for larger businesses, but none of the clients that I deal with really fall into that category, so we've not included it on the slides. But it works in a slightly similar way. And you've got to meet the other British Business Bank eligibility criteria, which you can find on their website. So to access the scheme, talk to your bank primarily, if you can, especially if you've got a named relationship manager, that's going to help you get the process through quicker. Or there's 40 accredited finance providers that are on the British Business Bank website. You're going to need a business plan, and you're going to be able to, going to have to provide a 6 month or at least 6 month, possibly 12 months or 2 year cash flow forecast, so that you can demonstrate affordability and that you will be able to repay this after this has all died down. All the major banks are offering the scheme, and if you're an existing loan with monthly repayments, you may want to ask for a repayment holiday as well as that, just to help with cash flow. They may or may not grant that. So yeah, go on the British Business Bank website to see that. So maximum claims, I've just said about that, all major banks. So there's a link there to the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme website, which is part of the Business Bank website. So you can see all the accredited lenders. If your bank is not playing ball, see who else you could approach. Now, I have seen that, and this has been confirmed, that the big four banks have been asked not to request personal guarantees for loans under £250,000. Now, then I did see something from HSBC that was slightly different, said £100,000, but this is what the government have said, is that if somebody's asking for £250,000 or less, they must not insist on a personal guarantee, so that it gives people the confidence to borrow and it's not putting personal, guarantees onto things that they don't need to. So it's worth bearing in mind. Finally, we've got the time to pay service. So this is, HMRC have always had a time to pay type arrangement, but they've been very reluctant to give it to people unless, apart from when we had the financial crisis. But now they've set it up so that all businesses and self-employed people who are in financial distress, who've got outstanding tax liabilities, so that could be VAT, corporation tax, income tax, pay as you earn, then HMRC may be able to offer you support through their time to pay service. This is agreed on a case-by-case basis. Our experience so far is that everybody who has called has managed to set something up. They are very accommodating because they understand that this is a tough time for businesses. So this is one of the things that I would do if you've got corporation tax coming up soon and you can't pay it, or if you did pay it, it would leave you short. It'd be worthwhile just calling them up and saying, can I have a time to pay arrangement and pay it over 3-6 months just to help your business cash flow. The interest on that, I'm not sure if there is interest on it or not. I will just have a little look on the next slide. But the number to call is on there. It's also on our website. Hold on a second, I've got different numbers here. So I've got a number here which is different to the other number. Call them both, and if one of them says Domino's, what pizza would you like, then try the other. So you're eligible if your business pays tax to the UK government and it has outstanding liabilities. So that's going to be a lot of people. If you miss a tax payment or your next payment's due and you can't afford to pay it, call that. And if it's obviously really significantly in the future, call them closer to the time. Don't call them if you've got payment due in October or something, because everything might change by then. So that's all the different government schemes that are available. We're now going to go to the Q&A. We've got 49 open questions. So I've never done this before. I don't know if I answer it live. Okay, so a couple of people. Limited company with directors and only 2 employees, can we claim anything? The answer is yes, you could, if you aren't able to work at all. As we discussed earlier, if you are able to do work, or you are going to be doing work, you wouldn't be able to claim furlough because you then wouldn't be meeting the requirements of being on furlough. What you can claim is if you've got business property, you can claim the grants for that. You can claim to defer your VAT liability or self-assessment liability, that's automatic. You could also get a time to pay arrangement, and if you are struggling, you could also apply for universal credit. And it may be possible that one of you could go on furlough and the other one not, depending on their roles in the business. Does that sound okay, Tina?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Peter Gibbons asked about what grant can he claim? Nothing, I'm afraid, Peter, unless, like Andrea, you are completely on furlough. But you may be able to put your wife on furlough and you carry on working, and then you could claim 80% of her wages that way. Wayne Castledine, it's going to be trading profit, net profit, not gross profit. So profit before tax, and I'm assuming it's going to be the profit before tax figure that goes into your, I don't know actually, whether it will be the accounting profit or the taxable profit after capital allowances. I'm not sure yet, but it'll be net profit anyway, not gross profit. Dawn Lewin's asked for more info on the furlough process. So do you want to talk about that, Tina?
Well, I did do a bit of, I did talk about that earlier. If Dawn wants anything in particular, if she wants to email me, I can give her some more specific advice on her personal situation.
Right, okay. I've answered some of these live.
There's a couple here. One says, we are a restaurant. Where is it? We're a restaurant who pays rates and everything to one landlord in a, where is it? This one. We're a restaurant and sublet from our landlord. Our council tax and bills are paid as a lump sum with rent. Would they still be eligible?
Well, the people who pay the rates are eligible for the grant, as far as I understand, because whoever gets sent the rates bill and whoever it's addressed to would be the one that would be eligible for the grant. It's all a bit unclear at the minute if the landlord would still qualify. We hope so, because that's the situation for us, that our landlord gets the rates bill. We tried to change it and it was a bloody nightmare. So we're hoping that that happens, and the landlord gets it and then can pass that on to the tenant. And that's something you need to be discussing with them, because if they get it and don't pass it on, then that's not very nice.
There's another one. Hannah Smith asks the same question, really. If you rent a space in an office, does that, and don't pay business rates? So that'll be the same, won't it? You have to ask your landlord.
Yeah.
About that. Can we furlough employees on maternity leave and that we are intending to pay more than SMP? So this one's an interesting one, because if the employee wants to, it depends where they are, I suppose, on their maternity leave. But if they've said have 6 months off, they can agree to come back to work and be furloughed. The difficulty might be when furlough leave finishes, they would have to come back to work. So that one, you would have to have a specific chat with the employee about how they want to deal with that. I've forgotten who that was now. Do you want just, if I, let's have a look. But again, if that lady wants to ask a more specific question, I will, and email me, I'll answer it specifically.
Bro, yeah. Can I work at a small amount?
Jane Crocker, if an employee wants to take one holiday during their 14-day isolation covered by SSP, should we encourage them to take it at the end of the 14 days, not during? Yes, for the reasons I said earlier, because you can only have one type of leave. It would be, yeah, they're going to get paid the 14-day sick pay. You're going to get 14 days reimbursed by the government. So then I encourage them to take their 1 day leave after that. Would be the answer to that. Does it apply, Mark Heathcote, does it apply to temporary workers as well? Is that furlough leave? So my question to the question is, if he's talking about it, does furlough leave apply? Yes, but only for the temporary period, or, and again, minimum of 3 weeks, but you, depending on the situation, you could agree to extend their temporary period if the furlough leave goes on longer than that.
Anonymous attendee. I have an employee starting 24th February. She qualifies for furlough, but does she get 8% of March pay? So the calculation for people who started partway through February but were on the payroll and RTI submission for February is that if they worked for 14 out of 28 days, you would work out what their monthly salary would have been, and that's what the 80% is based on. That's right, isn't it, Tina?
Yes.
Because obviously otherwise, if they only got paid 50 quid in February because they only did it a day, you can't really pay them 40 quid a month for the 4 months that they're off.
Yeah, I mean, even you've just got to make sure that they're furloughed for 3 weeks or more to be able to get the 80% grant back. What else have we got here? Just to clarify. Louise Straw, just to clarify, I still need to submit my VAT. Yes, you said they do, don't you? Submit your VAT return. Christine Johnston, if someone self-isolates due to government advice, then how can they be disciplined when not worked? Yeah, so it's where they've self-isolated off their own bat. If they've been advised to self-isolate by the government, then they don't get disciplined. It's if they've just decided off their own bat. I've got one client who has 2 employees. Well, they've got lots of employees, but 2 of them have decided one wants to not work. He's gone home thinking he's going to get SSP because his wife has some symptoms. And the other one said his wife had diabetes. Well, the one whose wife has diabetes and he has no symptoms, he's not entitled to SSP, and he's not entitled to he's not entitled to SSP because he's isolating himself for no valid reason. So the Public Health England guidelines actually say you're either you have to be ill yourself. For those who are vulnerable, you only have to social distance. That isn't the same as self-isolating, and it isn't a justifiable reason to get SSP. So, did that answer the question? If it didn't, send me an email and I'll...
Yeah, God. 46 open questions, crikey.
Yeah. No, just...
Yes, Jason, that's correct. You can carry over some...
Anonymous attendee, is corporation tax likely to be... They keep moving about, the questions keep moving about, and I've got them and then they disappear. Here it is. Is corporation tax likely to be paid as normal?
Well, your corporation tax, if you've already worked out your corporation tax and that's due at some point over the coming months, if you can afford to pay it, but only if you've got significant, sufficient funds to pay that and keep going. If it's due to be paid but you're struggling, you can arrange a time to pay arrangement. But corporation tax is not on the deferred taxes list at the minute because for a lot of businesses, their year ends 31st of March, take payments isn't due until 1st of January next year. So HMRC, the government don't foresee any issues with that at this stage. But if it's due soon, you'll have to pay it or arrange a time to pay using one of the 2 numbers, the 2 different numbers that I managed to put on the slide. So that's how you deal with corporation tax. So a lot of people asking if directors can claim furlough. Yes, they can, but given you'll only get about 500 something pounds a month, you'll have to wait a while for it. I wouldn't do it unless there's no other way for you to, to get money. You need the money desperately, and you're unable to do any work. If you can work, get yourself working and try and bring some cash in somehow, or get your business ready for when things change. Robert Dunner, does looking for work count as working from a furlough perspective? You can't looking for work as in looking for opportunities for your business. Yes, it would be. So if you were ringing up potential customers trying to get business in, that would be working. How they're going to police that, I don't know, but I imagine they're going to be very strict on this. Can furloughed employees do research preparatory work to enable them to be ready to be up and running when lockdown is released? That's one for you, Tina.
Sorry, which one? I'm in the middle of
from Lorraine Borman at 3:28 p.m. asked if furloughed employees can do research and preparatory work to enable them to be ready to be up and running when lockdown is released.
Prep work to enable them to be ready. Well, they're allowed to do training, aren't they? Provided they're getting the minimum wage. If by research and prep work you could class that as training, I suppose the answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, as long as it's training and not like actual work, preparatory work, you know,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like ordering stock in and putting it in a pile ready to build something, that wouldn't work. I'm just wondering if this is a recruitment business, and if the preparation work was, for example, looking through LinkedIn to do some preparation for future sales, I'd probably say that's work.
It's work, because it's sales preparation as opposed to. But if you were doing research, so say if it was I don't know, making sure you understood the COVID guidance for the purposes of questions their clients might ask, that would be training.
Yeah.
But it depends on exactly what it is that they're doing.
If you're doing sales research, that is providing services to your employer, the way I interpret it. And yeah, what you don't want to do is get yourself into hot water with HMRC, because I'd imagine there's also going to be some sort of name and shame policy introduced for businesses who have really flouted the laws and maybe put everybody on furlough, but then had them all still working. There'll be, you know, obviously naming and shaming people potentially for that.
What do you think about Robert McDonough's question? Does looking for work count as working from a furlough perspective? If it's looking for work as in looking for clients, then that's not training. So it would be work, wouldn't it, for the purposes of being a benefit to your employer or yourself if you're a business owner?
I think it's a grey area, because one of the duties of a director is to promote the best interests of the company. But I think if you're actively looking for customers, it's a grey area whether you're doing the work of an employee or as a duty of a director. I would say, to be honest with you, if you already paid yourself £700 a month anyway, and you claim 80% of that, don't claim the furlough and just try and find the work, rather than get yourself into hot water with HMRC, unless you are absolutely desperate for the money, because it's going to be a grey area that HMRC will look into, and if they see that you've done any activity on LinkedIn or anything like that, they're going to come asking for the money back, plus probably give you a black mark against your name for the future.
So if Robert is an employee, then the answer for that would be no. But if he's a director, probably not as well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to risk it.
We haven't really got a lot of guidance on what training, you know, how broad training might be. But training ought to be about preparing yourself for, or upskilling yourself, rather than looking for business, I think is the right answer. So there's an anonymous attendee at 3:23. So to clarify, is furloughing purely justified by lack of available work for the employee, regardless of if the business is still making profits? Well, yeah, it's if there's no work for the employee. If the business generates income whilst it isn't actually working, you know, while nobody is actually working, then that's okay. If there's no actual work for the employee to do, then you're entitled to furlough the worker, the employee rather. But normal employment law rights apply. So if you haven't got a layoff clause in your contract, then you do need to get their agreement. And you need to get their agreement to pay them only 80% if you need or want to pay them only 80%, because otherwise they'd be entitled to 100%, and they might come after you for it later on if you don't get their agreement.
Yeah, one other question on here, which is quite a good one. Someone was on about cash flow. So Lauren Pope says, she's concerned about cash flow. Obviously, the grants for the furlough is going to take a while to come through. It's going to be end of April or beginning of May when that money arrives. if you can't afford to pay your team the full amount of the wages they're getting, so that would be the 80% of their normal wage, I presume, what do you do? Now, the barrister we were talking about earlier, he said that if you ask your employees to agree to get paid whatever you can afford and get the rest later, if they agree to it, you can do that. Is that right, Tina?
Sorry, I was reading and replying. Sorry.
So if you can't afford to pay your employees the full amount of their furlough pay until the grant comes through, my understanding is you can ask them to accept what you can give them now and the rest later, but they have to agree to that.
Yes.
If they don't, they can take you to court or something, but that'll take a year.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably unlikely, but they might and they can.
But
they
won't get the money any quicker, would they?
Pardon?
They wouldn't get the money any quicker, would they, if they did that?
They won't get the money any quicker, and they could consider themselves constructively dismissed. So if they've got more than 2 years service, so it's best to get their agreement. Yeah. Before you do it.
I'm sure most employees would rather do that. We can give you a furlough template. I think Tina's going to give us some documents we can share between everybody who's come on the webinar today. So you've got something to use in your own businesses. That's right, Tina. You've got.
Yeah. And it gives you different options for them to agree to.
Brilliant. Directors of 2 companies. If you are not working in both companies, like you're a director of 2 companies, you could furlough yourself from both of those businesses and claim the 80% grant against both of those salaries if you get a salary in each of them. Or you must be on PAYE in both businesses. It's unlikely that you would be on PAYE in both. But if you are, and you're on the PAYE scheme and you're paying yourself a salary from that, you could claim, but you'd have to be also doing no work for either business, which, as I mentioned, is not an idea. So it's a timeline for HMRC contact you as sole trader to say you'll get payment ASAP. They're giving people time. So the people who've not yet submitted their 18, 19 tax returns, they're giving them 4 weeks to submit that return. I mean, they should have submitted it already, but they're giving them 4 weeks to submit that return so they can work out if they're eligible. So it's taking longer than normal. Yes, Stuart, if you take, sorry, Jane Scarborough says, yes, if you take an employee off furlough, they can go back on at a later date. That's been confirmed. Small limited companies, if you're less than a year old and the director's not submitted self-separate tax return, if you are a director limited company, you wouldn't get for this self-employment support. You can be put on formal furlough, as we mentioned, but that means doing no work. And there may be some grants if you've got premises. You defer your VAT or corporation tax payments. You can get a time to pay arrangement for that. Or the other option really is universal credit if all these don't work for you. And Rachel Boyd, yes, Adam will sort that out for you. Just pay them the 80%, and Adam will sort that out for you when we know more. Okay, I think that's all the questions. So, right, I'm going to run through the next bit now, quick. Sorry, I'm overrunning. Also, I'm going to need a wee, so I've drank all this water. And, we talked through previously about how to prepare a simple cash flow. So I am going to stop sharing this, and I'll start sharing the cash flow. So cash is always king, but at the minute, cash is the most important thing in your business, apart from your accountant. And so now you really need to be keen on managing your cash. If you use Xero and you're a client of ours, you've got free access to something called Fluidly, which can produce you a 3-month cash flow forecast, which uses a lot of data like robots that go into Xero and work out what the next 3 months could be like based on what's happened historically, payment terms, things like that. And you also have the option to upgrade to a full version for £39 a month. It might be something you need us to support you with because the data that comes out of it will be based on how good the data that's in it, but that's something we'll be sending around very shortly. If you don't use Xero or QuickBooks Online, we've got an Excel spreadsheet that we use, and I will just share that with you for a second. What's this? It's my thing. Right, okay, 1 sec. Let me just do this. Do that. Right, okay, yeah. Right, I'm going to share the screen. Right, here we go. Right, okay. So we've got this simple cash flow spreadsheet that really you set it up starting from whatever date it'll be, probably starting from April. Work out your opening cash balance, put in your sales, any other income, so any loans you might take out, things like that, and then all your various expenses. So tax, you put VAT payments in there. So these are all the gross amounts. So if your sales are £100 plus VAT, you put £120 in there, because it's about cash, not profit and loss account figures. Enter all those figures in there. It will automatically work out what your total income and total expenses are. You can insert lines if you need to add in anything extra you want to start reporting on. Your total expenses. Then you've got your non-P&L stuff, so capital repayments on loans and capital purchases, dividends, things like that that don't form part of your P&L. Will give you a closing balance, and then that will forecast forward. If you want to, you can adjust this to include any overdraft facility you've got, and then put an extra line in that will give you financial headroom, and we can help you with that. And it should help you to project forward. Bear in mind that if you are deferring any VAT payment, well, you're deferring your VAT payment and your self-assessment tax payment, that's going to need to be paid. So I would be factoring that in later, and that may identify that you're going to need a loan or an overdraft or some other facility to be able to operate. A copy of this will be sent out to everybody who's attended. If you've already had this, I'll send it to you again anyway. So that's just a simple Excel cash flow statement you can prepare. It may or may not be enough for the bank if you're looking for a coronavirus business interruption loan, but it will be enough for you to just keep an eye on money coming in, money going out. And if you need to, you can change that to weekly, and you can have those as weeks across the top there, if you can see my cursor going across, and extend it out. So it doesn't need to be monthly. If you need to manage cash on a week-by-week basis, then it will do that. And my colleague Sarah has also got a weekly cash flow template that we use for some of our other clients, so we can use that. So that is available for everybody who's on here. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share the thing again. So that, right, okay. So yeah, if you do need support with cash flow forecasting, then we are happy to help. It's something obviously we're going to be doing a lot of as we go forward. So please just let us know. Right, what am I doing here? Just oh God, sorry, I've just messed it up. I've just made myself disappear. I don't know where I am. Right,
You're
okay.
still showing on my screen.
Right, okay. Can you see the? Can you see me, or can you see the?
I can
anyway.
see you. Yeah.
Right, okay. Let me just do this. Right, okay. So yeah, that's cash flow forecasting. So other things to help you survive. A lot of this relates to cash flow and generating cash. So firstly, you've got to keep on your debtors. Now we're all in the same boat that some customers aren't paying us as quickly as they would, or our sales aren't coming as quickly as they would. But your debtors will understand if you communicate with them about how you need to get paid, so you can keep supporting them. And if they can't pay you in full, set up a payment plan or some way of getting paid. Look at whether, if you don't currently take credit cards or debit cards, look at whether you could get that facility up and running, iZettle or SumUp or something like that, that will help you to take payments that way. So if they want to pay on a personal credit card just to get the debt down, let them do that. Whatever it takes, get your money in from your debtors. Apparently,
David, just to let you know, I had a notice. I use SumUp, and they've sent me an email saying that they're not making any charges at all at the moment, so that you can just get the money in.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's brilliant to know. So if you don't use SumUp, if you start using that, no charges. I've heard that all county court cases for debt collection have been suspended for 3 months. Is that something you've heard, Tina?
Yes.
So you've got to work with your debtors, because you won't be able to take them to court to get the money, because otherwise the courts will be full of people getting sued. So the only option is to work with them, and then look at things like retention of title clauses or whatever if you've got goods you've given to them. But that's a legal thing. If you speak to Tina about that, if it's not something Tina can help with, she'll know somebody who can.
Yeah, I don't deal with debt collection myself, but I know people that do. So, but yeah, there's, I mean, all the courts are closed now, not even holding telephone hearings anymore. I think they're going to review it middle of April, but certainly at the moment, there's nothing going on in court.
So if I get up for speeding, I'll be all right for at least another 3 or 4 weeks. Which you don't need to speed at the minute because the roads are so empty. You can just drive normal speed and get to where you want to go really quick.
Yeah.
Stock control, so going to be difficult because people might not want it, but if you've got stock that might be useful to somebody, but it's just not been sold to your normal customer base, see if you can list it on eBay or Gumtree or on your website or through one of the Facebook for sale sites, whatever. Just if you've got stock and it's old or you don't, slow moving, try and sell it whichever way you can. You don't need to sell it for what you paid for it, really. If it's not sold for 3 years, you may as well turn it into cash and make a little bit of a loss on it rather than keep hold of it for the future, unless you do think that in the future we'll sell it for a lot more than you paid for it. Mortgage companies have been asked to grant you a 3-month mortgage deferral if you can't afford to pay your mortgage or your income's dropped because of COVID-19. Now, that is something to take advantage of if you don't have lots and lots of cash sloshing around. Obviously, having to pay your mortgage means you have to take more money from the company or the business, so that's something to look at. And that's obviously going to help save you quite a bit of money each month. Your suppliers as well, if you've got suppliers, particularly if they're large businesses or like finance providers, so loan companies, asset finance business companies, that sort of thing, they've been very receptive to my other clients calling them for a payment break for maybe 3 months and adding it on to the end of the term of that arrangement. So that's worth giving them a call if cash is tight. Landlords as well, some landlords are assisting their tenants by giving them 3 months rent break and adding it on to later time period. So there's all that. Any non-essential business costs, so entertaining, that sort of thing, those things that you do that you don't really need to do, cut those out. And also look at your processes, like where can you save time and or money. So I'm actually proud to be speaking on a Marketing Derby live thing tomorrow, where I've been asked to talk about creating opportunity from these challenges and just really to tell people that it's going to be okay. It feels uncertain at the minute and a lot of change has happened recently, but we are all going to be okay. And if we work together, we'll get out. So that's why I'm saying to people, don't just put yourself on furlough and claim 80%. These are things you can do. If your business has got some cash in it and you don't need some money from the government to live by going on furlough, these are just a few things that you can be doing. So sit down and think about what your personal goals are, where you want to be in 1, 3, 5 years time, where you want to be in the future. Use that to create your business plan, because your business is the vehicle to help you achieve those things that you want personally. So start that, set some KPIs. So it could be, I want turnover of X and profit of this in year 1, year 3, year 5. I need X amount of customers to generate that revenue. Whatever it is, just start to write your business plan and spend time planning for the future for when things do get better, because they will, and then you'll be able to hit the ground running. Linked to that, and probably one of the most productive things you can do, is to create a marketing plan. Now, none of us manage to find the time to do these things that we know we should do, but we don't. But you can create your marketing plan, identify your ideal customer, identify the best medium to use for marketing them to them, create the content, and then set a marketing calendar up to say, right, I'm going to send an email on this Monday. The following Monday, I'm going to do a letter to them. Then I'm going to give them a phone call. And these are the blog posts I'm going to publish. Get all your content ready so that when you do start marketing, you've got a Bible of all these things you can use to absolutely smash it on social media and through email or whatever. Do a webinar. I mean, if I can do it, anyone can do it. It's not that expensive either. I think the subscription for Zoom's like 12 quid a month, and the webinar add-on's 32 quid. It doesn't need to be a webinar. You can just use a normal subscription for 100 people and do it as a meeting. That's what I did last time. I thought I'd do the webinar this time because you get the Q&A bit, so that's good. And you can even monetize that if you wanted to. That's just a little idea we aren't doing, but you can. Writing down the systems and processes, so all the things that people do in the business, look at how it's done and try and find the most efficient way and document that and say to people, that's how we do it. That's how we raise a sales invoice. That's how we make this widget or whatever, so that when you come back, you can be more efficient. Look at technology. So obviously I'm using Zoom today. We've been using Microsoft Teams internally. We're using the cloud a lot more for things, and a lot of people are going to change the way they run their business as a result of this. See if you can use technology to be more efficient. One of the big things for that would be like cloud accounting. If you don't use cloud accounting at the minute and all your software is stored on desktop and it's been a pain to work with, get yourself in the cloud. It's mega. And it means you can work from anywhere. And the integrations with things like document processing, sales invoicing, debt recovery, stock management, CRM, they're amazing. And we can advise on that. You can do your own research, but that should hopefully save you time, save you money, and make you super lean and efficient. If you've got products or services that you deliver at the minute, can you improve those? Can you find a way to make your widgets a little bit more sexy so you sell more when you come out to the side? Can you design new services or improve existing services by changing the way that they're delivered so that when you come out to the side, you can say, yeah, all our competitors are doing this, but look, this is how we deliver that service. And just give yourself a competitive advantage. And there's loads and loads of free training out there. I mean, a lot of it is about Key Skills 1 to Key Skills 2, admittedly, but loads of free training and education stuff out there at the minute. So go online, do that. There's training like Zoom, on the Zoom thing. There's free training videos on that. Zero training webinars. I don't know if they're available to the general public or just to accountants, but there's that. Just do as much training and upskilling as you can so that when you come out to the side, you can absolutely smash it and hit the ground running. So there's some tips on what you can do to create some opportunities from the current challenges. So how can we help you? We've got a Facebook group that we set up specifically for clients, and where clients can try and collaborate and support each other. We'll share information on that. You can please speak to the partner that looks after your affairs. So if you're a client of ours and you've got a question, contact the relevant partner, myself, Terry, Harry, Jay, and we'll be able to help you and advise you on what support you can get and to guide you how to get that. We're going to do regular things like this, so I'm not sure how often we'll do it, as regular as we can, doing it as video meetings or webinars to keep you updated on what's available. If you are applying for a loan, then we can help you with the preparation of that business plan and cash flow forecasts. We would have to charge for that service because that's going to be quite a big thing, but you can incorporate that into the loan that you're going to be taking out. But we can give you the free tools like we have done already to do it yourself. But we'd be able to help you with that. And just keep talking to us. Most of our team are here. We're all available via email, via Zoom, by Microsoft Teams. And we're all sharing ideas and advice that we can give to our clients. So just contact us because we're in this together. And our goal is to make sure that every single one of our clients makes it through to the other side. All their team are fully engaged when we get through to the other side, and we can all hit the ground running and make our businesses as successful as they were prior to this and more. So thanks everyone for coming. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if any more Q&As come up. So I'm going to just stop sharing this. We've got some useful, sorry, I just got to say on that, I've got some useful links to the Gov website, DNCC, British Business Bank, ACAS. Whether you would do, I wouldn't use that, I'd probably use Tina, but that was on there from the last time. Some guidance from mindfulness from the NHS and the link to our Facebook group. So I'm just looking at around this. So a lot of clients say thank you very much. Tina's had some question. Hi, Izzy. If you defer corporation tax for 3 months, the interest, if they do decide to charge interest, the interest rate is 2%, I think, over base or something like that. So it's less than a loan would be. This is a coronavirus business interruption loan. So it's negligible. So I would suggest doing that if you can't pay it. I'm not sure what the new interest rate is because they've just dropped base rate to 0.1%. So that should affect the HMRC rate as well, but it's less than 3%. Right. Christopher Foster, can you furlough someone maternity leave? I know that Tina's already answered that. Not while on maternity leave, you can't furlough them, but if they came back, you could then put them on furlough. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
But then they can't go back on maternity leave afterwards.
Okay.
So that's that. So we've answered 24 of the questions. I think a lot of the questions are similar. Do employers have to have contracts or just be on the PAYE scheme? Anonymous attendee says.
Well, technically they should have contracts, and from the beginning of April, tomorrow, whatever it is, yes, they're required to have contracts from day one. But if they haven't got them, but that's for new employees, but if they haven't got them, technically they're entitled to them, or you're required to give them within 8 weeks of starting. But no, for the purposes of furlough leave, they only have to be on the PAYE system.
Right, yep. Brilliant. Okay. Well, if someone hasn't got a contract of employment anyway, they have got an implied contract, haven't they? Regardless of if you've given them.
Yeah, they've got a contract, albeit a verbal one, or what is written in any sort of engagement letter. But as from the 6th of April, or actually no, from the beginning of April, you have to give them Section 1 terms. There are a number of terms that you have to have, and the new one that really the only new one is training. You've got to have a clause in your contracts about training requirements, and if you have them and you want people to pay you back if they leave before you've had the benefit of that training, you can have a training agreement, but that agreement has to be signed probably at the beginning of the employment and prior to any training undertaken for it to be valid. And
brilliant. Thanks so much, Tina. Well, I think that's all, everybody. So Tina's going to give me some templates we can send out for furlough leave agreements. I will put Tina's contact details on the email I send out. So if you've got questions of a more specific nature, is that okay if they contact you, Tina? Absolutely.
And I was just thinking, for some of them that I haven't managed to reply while we've been talking, will this stay live and so that I can answer a few more, or will we lose the question? I don't know how it works.
Let me have a little look. Allow anonymous questions, answer questions only, all questions.
So when, when you've closed down, I could. Well,
yeah, I'll be able to say.
We'll see. To them, then I can reply to them. That's all I was thinking.
I'm sure they'll all be available anyway when we get to the end of the webinar. We'll find out. If not,
if not, email and I'll reply.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, thanks everybody for coming. I'll send out any slides and stuff once I've had a chance to edit them. I've recorded the meeting, so that's done. I don't know how I'm going to share that because it's going to be long. It's been on for like an hour and a half because I love waffling. But between us all, we'll get the information out to you. If you get any questions, give us a shout. And thank you for attending. And thank you ever so much to Tina for coming and assisting with this and giving us loads of really helpful advice.
You're welcome.
Right, take care everybody. Stay safe, stay indoors, protect the NHS, etc.
Bye.